The Galactic Council chamber was a sight to behold, a place where civilizations spanning millions of light-years gathered to deliberate, argue, and shape the destiny of the galaxy. Its grand hall shimmered with crystalline walls, refracting ambient starlight into a kaleidoscope of colors. Delegates of over 1,000 species filled the concentric tiers, their voices blending into a low hum of tension and curiosity. Despite the myriad forms of life represented, gaseous entities encased in containment fields, silicon-based life forms etched with glowing runes, and creatures of flesh, fur, and scale, today all attention was focused on a single species: humans. They were a young race by galactic standards, barely a blip in the timeline of the cosmos. Emerging from their small, unremarkable star system in a remote arm of the galaxy, humanity had stumbled into the Council's notice less than a century ago. At first they were dismissed as inconsequential, a species that had achieved warp travel but lacked the refinement or technological prowess to pose a threat or be of use. Their introduction to interstellar politics had been rocky at best. Arrogant, unpredictable, and fiercely independent, humans were seen as more trouble than they were worth. That perception had changed abruptly after the Arcturian incident. The Arcturians were one of the most feared militaristic civilizations in the galaxy, known for their ruthlessness and efficiency. When human settlers established a colony on a planet within contested space, the Arcturians moved quickly to assert their dominance. Their demands for surrender were met with defiance. Such insolence was not new. Many species had tried to resist the Arcturians, and all had been crushed. It was standard protocol: deploy advanced pacification weapons, neutralize resistance, and claim the territory. Simple, efficient. But this time, the weapons failed. Footage of the battle had spread like wildfire across the galactic networks. It showed human soldiers and colonists standing defiantly as neural disruptors designed to incapacitate entire armies washed over them harmlessly. Arcturian molecular destabilizers, weapons so destructive they reduced enemies to their base elements, had no effect. Human forces advanced steadily, wielding what appeared to be crude projectile weapons and explosives. The Arcturians, caught off guard and unable to comprehend what they were facing, retreated in disarray. The incident had stunned the galaxy. It wasn't just the fact that humans had survived, it was how they had done it. Neural disruptors, molecular destabilizers, and other advanced weaponry had been the pinnacle of galactic warfare for millennia. Developed to ensure total dominance over any adversary. No species had ever been immune. Yet humans, with their outdated technology and minimal defenses, had endured. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to address the matter. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy gathered, their usual rivalries and disputes temporarily set aside as they focused on the enigma of humanity. For many, the question was simple: how could a species so seemingly unremarkable possess such a profound advantage? In the heart of the chamber, the Threxian speaker presided over the session. The Threxians were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, their wisdom and neutrality earning them the role of mediators. The speaker, a centipede-like being with iridescent blue scales and a voice that resonated like a gentle hum, called for order. The delegates' murmurs subsided as attention turned to the holograms projected above the chamber. They displayed footage from the Arcturian incident. Humans walking unscathed through clouds of beryllium gas, their bodies resisting the energy waves of plasma weapons. This phenomenon demands explanation, the speaker intoned, its multiple eyes scanning the assembly. Humanity's apparent immunity to advanced weaponry presents a challenge to the balance of power in this galaxy. We must understand the nature of their anomaly. Vox learned the principle of interage war. A team of scientists from various species was assembled to investigate. Leading the effort was Dr. Crix Toole, an Eslorn biologist known for his expertise in interspecies physiology. The Eslurs, insectoid creatures with 6 spindly limbs and compound eyes, were meticulous and methodical, making Crix Toole an ideal candidate for the task. He was given access to a delegation of human volunteers who had agreed to participate in the tests. Humanity, eager to demonstrate their willingness to cooperate, hoped the results would allay the Council's fears. The experiments were conducted aboard the Titan Nexus, a state-of-the-art research station orbiting a dying star. The station's sterile corridors and advanced laboratories were a stark contrast to the humans' casual demeanor. They arrived in simple uniforms, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and amusement. To the scientists, this was unnerving. Most species subjected to such experiments displayed anxiety or fear. The humans seemed almost eager. Dr. Crickstool began with a standard neural disruptor, a device that emitted energy pulses designed to scramble brain functions and render targets unconscious. The humans stood in the testing chamber, their movements monitored by an array of sensors. The disruptor activated, releasing a pulse that should have dropped them instantly. Instead, the humans blinked, exchanged glances, and shrugged. The spectators stared at the terrestrian. "Anything?" Crickstool asked, his antennae twitching with confusion. One of the humans, a tall man with a lopsided grin, replied, "Felt like a bad hangover for a second. That's it." Crickstool increased the intensity. The disruptor pulsed again, its energy levels rising to levels that would have incapacitated even the hardiest species. The humans remained standing. Some winced, others rubbed their temples, but none showed signs of collapse. This is not possible," Crickstool muttered, his mandibles clicking in frustration. He activated the molecular destabilizer, a weapon capable of disassembling matter at the atomic level. It had been used to devastating effect in countless conflicts, leaving nothing but dust in its wake. The destabilizer's beam enveloped the humans, bathing them in a shimmering field of energy. When the field dissipated, the humans were still there, untouched. "Okay, that one tickled," one of them quipped, earning a smirk from the others. The tests continued with increasing desperation. Energy plasmids, beryllium gas, high-frequency resonance waves, none had any effect. The humans were subjected to conditions that would have annihilated any other species, yet they endured with little more than mild discomfort. "This defies all known science," Crickstool said during a meeting with the Council's Scientific Advisory Board. "Their physiology is unremarkable by galactic standards. They lack the natural exoskeletons, adaptive metabolisms, or regenerative capabilities of other species. And yet, they are immune to weapons that operate on entirely different principles." The humans offered no clear answers. When pressed, they spoke vaguely about Earth's history. They described a planet teeming with dangers, predatory creatures, relentless diseases, extreme climates, and natural disasters. "We've had to adapt," one human explained. "Our survival depended on resilience. Maybe that's why your weapons don't work on us." The Council was divided. Some species viewed humanity as a threat, arguing that their immunity made them too dangerous to tolerate. Others saw potential, suggesting that humanity's resilience could be an asset to the galaxy. The debate grew increasingly heated, with factions forming and alliances shifting in real time. Amid the chaos, the human ambassador, Elena Vasquez, addressed the Council. She was a striking figure, her presence commanding attention even in a room filled with beings far more physically imposing. Dressed in a simple yet elegant suit, she exuded confidence without arrogance. "Esteemed members of the Council," she began, her voice steady and clear, "I understand your concerns. The events of the Arcturian incident and the results of these experiments have raised questions about humanity's place in the galaxy. Let me assure you, we do not seek to dominate or disrupt. We are not a threat." She gestured to the holographic displays, which now showed images of Earth, volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, pandemics, and wars. "This is our home," she continued, "a world of relentless challenges, For millennia we have faced extinction again and again. We've learned to survive not because we are stronger or smarter than other species, but because we adapt. Our resilience is not a weapon, it is a byproduct of our struggle. Alina's gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes, or equivalent sensory organs, of the delegates. We believe in collaboration. Our immunity can serve as a shield, not a sword. Imagine what we could achieve together, combining our strength and knowledge. The chamber fell silent as her words sank in. For the first time, the delegates saw humanity not as an anomaly to be feared, but as a partner with the potential to contribute something unique. The debate was far from over, but Elena had planted a seed of hope, a vision of a galaxy where humanity's resilience could be a force for unity rather than division. As the session adjourned, the representatives departed with much to consider. Humanity had shocked the galaxy, not just with their immunity to weapons, but with their unwavering determination to survive and their willingness to extend a hand of friendship. The galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council chamber had long been a place where the most enlightened and powerful species in the universe gathered to address the delicate balance of power that governed the galaxy. The chamber itself was a work of art, an awe-inspiring structure of translucent crystals that reflected the light of distant stars, casting the room in a soft, ethereal glow. The delegates from over 1,000 species, each with its own unique physiology and method of communication, filled the tiers of the chamber, their voices low but urgent. The subject of the day was humanity, a species that, until recently, had been regarded as nothing more than a footnote in the long history of the galaxy. But everything had changed after the Arcturian incident. The Arcturians, one of the most fearsome military civilizations in the galaxy, had always relied on their advanced technology to dominate their enemies. With weapons capable of dismantling entire fleets and pacifying even the most rebellious populations, the Arcturians were known for their ruthlessness. So when human colonists, who had established a small settlement on a contested planet, refused to yield to Arcturian demands, the Arcturians deployed their usual strategy. They sent a heavily armed battalion equipped with neural disruptors, molecular destabilizers, and plasma weaponry designed to swiftly neutralize any resistance. The result was nothing short of baffling. The humans, with their seemingly primitive technology and outdated weaponry, stood their ground. Despite the overwhelming odds and the power of the Arcturian weapons, the humans did not fall. Instead, they endured. The footage from the battle was broadcast across the galaxy, showing human soldiers under heavy fire, pushing forward with determination, their bodies seemingly immune to the weapons that had decimated entire fleets of other species. The implications of this event were profound. No species had ever demonstrated such immunity to the advanced weaponry of the galaxy's military powers. The neural disruptors, which incapacitated even the most resilient beings, had no effect on the humans. Molecular destabilizers, capable of dissembling matter at a molecular level, left the humans untouched. The ferralium gas, a lethal agent capable of rendering entire ecosystems uninhabitable, did nothing to slow them down. The Arcturians, bewildered and panicked by their inability to subdue the humans, were forced into a hasty retreat. This unprecedented event shook the Galactic Council to its core. Representatives from various species met in an emergency session, their voices raised in heated debates as they tried to make sense of what had happened. Some argued that humanity posed a grave threat to the stability of the galaxy. If they could withstand the most potent weapons known to any species, what else were they capable of? Others, however, saw potential in the humans' resilience, wondering if their unique immunity could serve as a valuable asset in the galaxy's complex political and military landscape. In the days that followed, the Council convened in a series of sessions to discuss the matter in greater depth. Leading the investigation was Dr. Crixtool, a brilliant biologist from the Esloran species who had dedicated his life to understanding the physiology of other species. The Eslarons were known for their meticulous research and their ability to adapt to a wide range of environments. Dr. Crixhool had been chosen to lead the scientific team tasked with studying humanity's strange immunity, and he wasted no time in bringing the best minds from across the galaxy together. The experiment was set in motion quickly. A group of human volunteers, eager to demonstrate their resilience, agreed to participate. They arrived at the Titan Nexus, a vast research station orbiting a dying star. The station was equipped with the most advanced scientific instruments available to the Council, and the team was prepared to conduct a series of tests to uncover the source of the humans' immunity. The humans, clad in simple uniforms, appeared calm and composed as they entered the testing chamber. Their expressions betrayed no fear or apprehension, which only added to the growing sense of unease among the scientists. The Eslorans and other researchers had prepared a variety of weapons and testing scenarios, everything from energy pulses to chemical agents, from high-frequency resonance waves to molecular disassemblers. Each of these tests had been designed to exploit any potential vulnerability in the humans, to uncover what made them so resistant to the galaxy's most deadly technologies. Dr. Crixhool was the first to speak, his voice resonating with authority. "We will begin with the neural disruptor," he said, his multiple eyes fixed on the humans. "This device has proven effective against countless species, rendering them unconscious within moments. It is our hope that it will provide us with some insight into your resistance." The first pulse was emitted, a wave of energy designed to disrupt the neural activity of any organism caught in its path. The humans flinched slightly as the pulse washed over them, but they did not collapse. One of the volunteers, a tall man with short dark hair, looked up with a raised eyebrow. "That's it?" he asked, his voice tinged with amusement. "Is this supposed to be some kind of test?" The scientists exchanged bewildered glances. They had expected the humans to fall to the ground in agony, unable to withstand the intensity of the disruptor. Instead, the humans appeared mildly inconvenienced, as though they had merely been exposed to a slight discomfort. "Increase the intensity," Dr. Crixhool ordered, his mandibles clicking in frustration. The pulse was amplified, sending a more concentrated energy wave into the chamber. This time, the humans swayed slightly, but they remained standing, unshaken by the increased force. "It's like a bad headache," one volunteer muttered, rubbing his temples. "But nothing serious." The scientists were dumbfounded. They had never encountered such resistance before. The neural disruptor was designed to incapacitate even the most resilient species within seconds, yet the humans seemed to be immune. With growing concern, Dr. Crixhool instructed the team to proceed to the next test, the molecular destabilizer. The destabilizer was a weapon capable of dissembling matter at a molecular level, turning even the hardest materials into dust. It had been used in countless battles to break the will of enemy forces by reducing their very existence to nothingness. The scientists had high hopes that this weapon would reveal some weakness in the humans' immunity. The beam of energy struck the humans, enveloping them in a field of shimmering light. The destabilizer's pulse rippled through the chamber, and the very air seemed to vibrate with the intensity of the energy. For a moment, it appeared as though the humans might be reduced to nothing, as countless other species had been before them. But when the light dissipated, the humans were still standing, completely unharmed. X-rays, research, air and light protection for humans. How wonderful. "From the galaxy," Dr. Crixhool breathed, his voice tinged with disbelief. He had seen the destabilizer reduce entire planets to rubble, yet it had no effect on the humans. The scientists looked at each other, unsure of what to make of this. One of the human volunteers, a woman with dark brown hair and a calm demeanor, stepped forward. "That was impressive," she said with a small smile. "But I've got to admit I was expecting something a little more dramatic." The other humans chuckled softly, and the scientists were left in stunned silence. They had run every conceivable test on the humans, but nothing had worked. No weapon, no matter how advanced, had been able to harm them. The results were irrefutable. Humanity was immune to some of the deadliest technologies in the galaxy. Dr. Crickstool convened a private meeting with the Council's Scientific Advisory Board. The room was filled with representatives from various species, all of whom were eager to understand the source of humanity's resilience. The air was thick with tension as the meeting began. "We have conducted every test possible," Dr. Crickstool began, his voice heavy with frustration, "and yet we have found no explanation for humanity's immunity. Their physiology is not particularly remarkable by galactic standards. They lack the biological traits that would explain their resistance. No exoskeletons, no regenerative capabilities, no adaptive metabolic systems. And yet, they remain unaffected by our most lethal weapons." A Mercian scientist whose species was known for their ability to manipulate quantum fields spoke up. "Could it be some form of energy manipulation? Perhaps their bodies are resonating at a frequency that nullifies the effects of our weapons?" Dr. Crickstool shook his head. "We have tested for that as well. There is no evidence that they are manipulating energy fields in any discernible way. It is as though they are simply immune to the very forces that should destroy them." The room fell into silence, the weight of the mystery hanging heavy in the air. The delegates exchanged uneasy glances, each wondering the same thing. What did this mean for the galaxy? Were the humans a new and unprecedented threat, or were they a species that could offer something valuable to the galaxy? One delegate, a representative from the Lanarar, a race of gaseous beings who communicated through pulses of light, finally spoke. "Perhaps it is not the weaponry that is the issue, but the intent. If humanity can withstand our weapons, then perhaps it is not the weapons themselves that must change, but how we use them. Perhaps this is a species we must learn to understand rather than conquer." This suggestion was met with mixed reactions. Some species, still rattled by the humans' display of resistance, feared that such a species could upset the balance of power. Others, however, were intrigued by the potential for cooperation. The debate raged on for hours, but one thing was clear. Humanity's immunity to advanced weaponry had irrevocably altered the course of galactic politics. As the council session drew to a close, Alina Vasquez, humanity's ambassador, was called to speak. She had been watching the proceedings from the sidelines, her mind racing with the implications of what had transpired. She stood before the gathered delegates, her calm presence commanding attention. "I understand that what we've shown you today is difficult to comprehend," she said, her voice steady. "But I ask you to look at the bigger picture. We are not invincible. We have survived because we have learned to adapt, to fight against impossible odds. Our immunity is not a gift, it is a result of the harsh realities we have faced on our homeworld." She paused, her eyes sweeping across the room. "We do not seek to dominate or control, we seek understanding. Our immunity may be a mystery, but it is not a weapon. We offer our resilience not as a shield for conquest, but as a shield for peace." The room was still, the delegates lost in thought as they absorbed her words. The fate of humanity and the future of the galaxy was hanging in the balance. Would the Council embrace humanity as an ally, or would they treat them as a threat? The decision was yet to be made. But one thing was certain. Humanity had made an indelible mark on the galaxy that could never be erased. The corridors of the Titan Nexus were eerily silent, a far cry from the usual buzz of activity that marked the bustling station. Dr. Crickstool walked through the halls with a heavy heart, his mind consumed by the recent events. The experiments with the humans had been a failure, at least in terms of understanding their immunity. Nothing they had tried seemed to affect them. Every test, no matter how deadly or intricate, had failed to produce the expected results. And the humans, unfazed by the weapons, indifferent to the weapons meant to render them helpless, had remained oddly composed, almost as if they were expecting such an outcome. Crixthul had studied countless species over the years, and yet nothing had prepared him for this. His sharp, multifaceted eyes darted from side to side as he pondered the implications. Humanity had somehow defied the very laws of biology and physics. What did that mean for the galaxy? The Scientific Council had convened again, this time in a more private setting. Crixthul was one of the first to arrive, his six-legged body gliding silently across the polished floors. He was greeted by representatives from other species, each offering their own theories, some practical, others far more speculative. The discussions had been tense, each member wary of the unknown power that humanity seemed to possess. One of the first to speak was a representative from the Nezard, a species of crystalline life forms who communicated through vibrational frequencies and whose bodies were impervious to most known forms of energy. It seems that the humans possess something entirely foreign to us. Could their resilience be a result of evolutionary adaptation? The Nezard delegate said, his voice a deep, resonating hum. It is possible, but the evidence we have does not point to any conventional adaptive trait, Crystal replied, his voice tinged with frustration. Their physiology does not match any known survival mechanism. They are, in essence, an anomaly. No evolutionary process could account for their resistance to such a broad spectrum of weapons. The other members of the Scientific Advisory Board exchanged looks, murmurs spreading through the room. The Zivrai, a race of beings that existed in a perpetual state of energy flux, suggested that perhaps humanity had stumbled upon some form of resonance frequency, something akin to the way their own species existed. The hypothesis was quickly rejected, as no evidence of such a field had been detected in the humans. Crixthul, however, was not so easily deterred. He had seen enough to know that whatever the humans had, it was something far beyond the usual scope of scientific understanding. He had already formed a theory, one that he was reluctant to share, but felt it might be the only explanation for what he had witnessed. Before he could speak, Elena Vasquez, the human ambassador, entered the room. Her presence was commanding, as always. She was a young woman by galactic standards, yet her confidence had earned her the respect of every species in the room. The human species had not been known for their political finesse, but Elena had proven herself a capable and wise negotiator. Her sharp eyes scanned the room before she addressed the gathering. "I know the last few days have been difficult for all of you," she began, her voice steady but laced with concern. "But we're here to help. We don't want to be an enigma. We want to work with you. If you'll allow us, we will share everything we know." A murmur of agreement passed through the council. For all the suspicion that humanity had raised, there was still a yearning for cooperation. The tension in the room had eased slightly, but Crixthul was not yet convinced. He could sense that something about humanity's immunity went deeper than they were letting on. It wasn't just a biological anomaly. It felt like there was something more, something that even they didn't fully understand. "I have been thinking," Crystal said slowly, his voice cutting through the conversation like a blade. "We have tested you with everything we have, our most advanced weapons, our most destructive forces, but perhaps we have missed something fundamental. It's possible that your resistance is not biological in nature, but psychological or even quantum. What if your minds or your collective consciousness are what shields you from harm?" The room fell silent. The idea was radical, yet it was not entirely without merit. The Zivri delegate raised an eyebrow, her energy forms shifting as she considered the possibility. Could it be that the humans have developed a form of mental fortitude, some sort of psychic barrier that neutralizes our weapons? Such a phenomenon is unheard of, but not impossible. Elena was silent for a moment, her gaze fixed on Crixthul as if contemplating his words. "I'm not sure about psychic barriers," she said finally, "but I do know that humanity has faced adversity for as long as we've existed. We have survived through sheer willpower, through our ability to adapt and fight back. It is what makes us who we are." Crixthul nodded slowly, intrigued but still skeptical. So, you are suggesting that humanity's survival is a result of mental resilience rather than physical adaptation? Not just mental resilience, Elena replied, her voice firm, but something deeper. We've faced pandemics, natural disasters, wars. We've had to fight for survival on every front. We've learned not just to endure, but to overcome. I think that's what makes us unique. The conversation shifted. The other delegates, still cautious, began to consider the possibility that humanity's immunity was tied not to their biology, but to their collective mental strength. Crixthul, however, was not satisfied. He had seen many species overcome incredible odds, but none had exhibited such resistance to the very fabric of the universe's most destructive forces. He needed more answers, answers that only the humans could provide. The following weeks were filled with additional tests, more refined and more focused. The scientific team began experimenting with the idea that humanity's resistance might be linked to their emotional or psychological state. The theory was that the humans' collective willpower could somehow interfere with the energy signatures of the weapons they encountered, rendering them ineffective. The humans were subjected to increasingly extreme conditions. They were exposed to high radiation fields, intense gravity wells, and violent temperature fluctuations, all in an effort to determine the limits of their endurance. The results were baffling. While other species would have been reduced to nothing under similar conditions, the humans endured. They adapted. They never faltered. The human volunteers who had initially been cooperative began to show signs of exhaustion, but there was no breaking them. Each time they were asked to undergo a new trial, they responded with unwavering resolve. At the same time, Elena and her team worked closely with Crixthul, helping him understand the nature of their survival. It became clear that humanity's strength was not just mental but deeply cultural. They had built societies based on cooperation, innovation, and the will to survive. It was in their very fabric. It was a lesson learned over millennia of struggling against the odds. The humans, it seemed, had not just evolved biologically, but had crafted themselves into a species that could bend the rules of nature through sheer force of will. One evening, as the tests continued, Elena sat down with Crixthul in one of the quieter chambers of the Titan Nexus. The room was dimly lit, the stars outside casting faint glimmers of light through the crystalline walls. They had spent hours discussing the research, and Elena could see the exhaustion in Crixthul's eyes. "I know you're frustrated," she said softly, her voice breaking the silence. "But you have to understand, this isn't just about science. It's about how we think, how we process the world. Our resilience comes from our collective experiences. We've had to learn how to live with loss, how to fight for what we believe in. It's ingrained in us." Crixthul was silent for a long time, considering her words. Finally he spoke. "I have studied countless species, and I have never encountered one like yours. It is as if you exist beyond the rules that govern other life forms. It's almost as if you transcend the physical world itself." Elena shook her head, a faint smile on her lips. "We don't transcend the physical world. We just refuse to give up. Maybe that's why we're still here." Crixthul looked at her, his multifaceted eyes narrowing in thought. "Then, it is not immunity that makes you unique. It is your refusal to yield." A silence hung in the air as the weight of Crixthul's words settled. Elena felt the truth of them deep within her. It wasn't just about surviving the trials of the galaxy. It was about rejecting defeat, about finding a way to press forward even when every instinct screamed to stop. She had seen it in her people every day of her life, and she had learned to embrace it, just as her ancestors had done for millennia. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not because they were invincible, but because they had learned to persist when others would not. And perhaps, Elena thought, that was the lesson the galaxy needed to learn. It wasn't about the weapons or the technology. It was about the will to survive, to fight, and to keep going when the odds seemed insurmountable. And that was something the galaxy could no longer ignore. As the days passed, the tests continued, but something had shifted. The delegates, once wary and suspicious, began to see humanity not as a threat, but as a force to be reckoned with. A force that could offer something far more valuable than any weapon, a lesson in resilience, in determination, and in the power of never giving up. And as the council deliberated, Elena knew that humanity's place in the galaxy had been secured. They would not be passive observers. They would stand as equals, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Because, after all, that was what humanity did best.